What do you say, Diana? Preventing anger? How on earth do you prevent anger? Yes, you can prevent anger, and I'll tell you how. Think about this. Most of the things that we get angry about, especially when it comes to our families or people who are close to us, which is where most of our anger and resentments come from. Most of the time, we get angry with them because they didn't do something that we thought they should do. So here's what I'm going to say. Stop shoulding on people. And the word is S-H-O-U-L-D. And yes, it's deliberately meant to sound like the other word. Stop shoulding on other people. Stop shoulding on yourself. For example, a husband shouldn't say that or do that. Therefore, now I'm mad because he did not live up to what I think he should or shouldn't do. Or a daughter doesn't do that or shouldn't do that, or a son shouldn't do that, or a mom or dad shouldn't do that, or a sister or brother, or any, aunt, uncle, whomever. So many times we are angry at people because they're not living up to our standard for them. Or what I like to say is, better yet, expectations. So when we should on these people, what we're really doing is planting seeds of future anger. Really, remember how I talked, and I've shared several times about if you plant bad things grow? Well, our expectations and our sense of what people should and shouldn't do are planting, those are the seeds of anger, resentment, revenge, retaliation, the whole 9 yards. So if we stop with the expectations and stop with the shoulding, then we're going to go a lot farther in having more harmonious relationships and not living with so much anger and resentment. Now, I'm not talking about serious harm, because that's right, we should not cause serious harm to our loved ones or to strangers or to anybody. I'm not talking about true, genuine wrongs. I mean, obviously, my brother's best friend and former business partner shouldn't have shot him 9 times, but he did. And even still, if somebody's doing things that they aren't supposed to be doing that are inherently wrong, evil, or against societal norms, or just not healthy, whole, or helpful, sure, that's going to cause a problem with us. But guess what? We still have to forgive. So the best way that I know to prevent anger is to drop our expectations. And I know that sounds hard. It's like, well, wait a minute. Don't I have a right to expect things? Well, yeah, you have a right to expect as much as you want, but do you have a right to get what you expect? That's the trick. That's the part that where we have a sense of injustice. So you see, the sense of injustice is going on in our own head, and all of a sudden we're angry with somebody. And we're taking it out on them, and we're being ugly to them. Well, guess what they do in retaliation? Well, gee, a relative shouldn't do that. So now they're taking this out on you in retaliation. And the next thing you know, you have family members who don't speak to each other for 10 years because somebody should have done something or shouldn't have done something, and shoulda. Okay. Yeah, I just decided to launch right into this particular presentation, but this is day 27 of 100 Days of Videos with Diana Papilli. And I just feel very strongly about this. I used to be the queen of expectations, and I still have to fight it sometimes. It's like, well, gee, I really would rather it to be this way. And so therefore I'm going to start, reacting toward my expectations. So it's not anything that always comes easily to people. But if we think about it, if we just accept people where they are and where they're coming from, even if we don't necessarily like it, accepting doesn't necessarily mean you have to condone the behavior or, well, especially if it's bad behavior. And if it's harmful or really negative behavior, then we need to set boundaries. Or if we have some really sick families that we're going to get together with, then why not have a plan B or a plan C? Or if something doesn't go right, then just roll with it and adjust. It's just going to make life a lot easier than it is going to be to hold somebody to a standard that they may not possibly be able to live up to. Even if it's a normal standard, it just may not be what that person is capable of doing. And I guess if we can learn to accept that about people, and like I was talking about earlier, when we think about people's negative traits, everybody, I believe it was Abraham Lincoln who said, if you look for the bad in people, you shall surely find it. So why don't we start looking for the good in people? We know there's both good and bad in people, so why don't we start looking for the good and respond to that and accept that? And if it's something that's truly bad that can be harmful, then adjust accordingly. Set the boundaries, honor the boundaries. Don't make threats or anything like that. Just set your boundaries, honor the boundaries, and then go about your business and leave well enough alone. So that's what I have to share today about anger and resentment and preparing for the holidays. And here's hoping that, I'm not going to talk too much about the holidays at this point, but here's hoping that you have a wonderful and happy and joyous holiday season, no matter what you do. One thing I would like to do as a follow-up, just a brief follow-up to my video yesterday, when I talked about how I dealt with my brother's murder and how I had to, forgive the perpetrator. And the final bit of closure that I had was several years ago. I've been a member of Toastmasters, or I was, I'm not anymore, but I was a member of Toastmasters for something like 18 or 19 years, both when I lived in Bozeman, Montana, as well as here in Boise. And I learned that there was a volunteer, what's called Gavel Club, done at our local prison, and that they needed some help with that. The two volunteers from Toastmasters who were volunteering at the local prison needed help with that. I jumped, and I mean I jumped at the chance. Why? Why would I want to go into a prison? Because I needed to see even prisoners, even people who did evil things and did things illegally. I needed to see them as human beings. And in that amount of time, and it was a couple years that I did that volunteer work, in that amount of time, I truly did. The Toastmasters meeting inside the prison, even though we were in a prison, and it was clearly obvious that we were, that Toastmasters meeting was like any other Toastmasters meeting on the outside. We laughed and cried together. Some people were shy, others were showmen, and it was a men's prison where I was volunteering. And there were three of us, 3 volunteers, 2 women and a man. And they had strong points with their speaking. It was also a speaking and a leadership program as well. And so they took leadership roles. Some of them did them well. Some of them didn't do them so well. Some of them shirked their duties. These are the very same kinds of behaviors that happened on the outside. And so it was important for me to be able to see a human being, or a prisoner as a human being, as having value. Because even if they had committed terrible crimes, they're still human and they still have value. I also blogged about that. it's around the same dates. It's September of 2016. I wrote an article for my blog entitled Everyone Has Value. And so if you are inclined to want to read that and learn more about that experience, you may go there and read that at dianapapilli.com. So hope you're having a good evening, and you will have a good evening and the rest of your afternoon. And thank you for tuning in, and talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.